Fox News host Neil Cavuto is likely to get a lot of hate mail from MAGA cultists this month because not only has he been publicly challenging Republican politicians for their various failures, he just ruthlessly fact-checked Donald Trump during a live Trump rally. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, I feel it's important to highlight when Fox News occasionally gets it right, even though it's predominantly the Fox propaganda network. You obviously have Jessica Tarlov, who we cover quite a bit on this show. You also have Neil Cavuto, who I think, even much more so than Bret Baier, is the last voice of sanity on the Fox propaganda network that isn't a commentator like Jessica Tarlov. Okay, I want to play several clips of Neil Cavuto. I wouldn't be surprised if that guy is without a job by the end of the year. He certainly gets quite a bit of hate mail from Republican viewers and MAGA cultists, and that is almost certainly going to increase after this clip. This is Neil Cavuto fact-checking Donald Trump from a South Carolina Trump rally.
Continue monitoring the president's remarks, and I mean no offense to him, or some of you might want to continue hearing, but I did have to say that even though the former president is entitled to his opinions, he's not entitled to his own set of facts. The market has indeed been going up, but having nothing to do with him and everything to do with this aggressive cut in interest rates, or does a hiking in interest rates that stabilized inflation, and of course the whole artificial intelligence phenomenon that has benefited NVIDIA and a host of companies that are making money hand over fist. So that, whether you want to give Biden credit for that, has nothing to do with Donald Trump. Furthermore, he mentioned about gas prices out of whack, $6 a gallon. The national average right now is $3.26 cents a gallon. He went on to talk about the 2020 election and how that was rigged. This has been adjudicated many times, dozens of times. It's been investigated by everyone and his uncle. No fewer than 44 investigations launched, some of them by judges that were picked by Donald Trump himself, that found no evidence of that in the 7 battleground states where most of them were focused. Donald Trump lost each and every one of those.
Oof. Ouch. He's definitely going to get some hate tweets, some hate mail. As a matter of fact, I guarantee you, if you go to Twitter right now, type in Neil Cavuto and search under the latest parameters, you're going to see a bunch of very infuriated Republicans. But it's simply true. He was right to fact check Donald Trump. Very few people have the temerity to do it, certainly during a live Trump event and certainly on the number of topics, right? So as we talked about, you know, Trump and Republicans generally enjoy a colossal advantage with respect to polling on the economy, but consumer sentiment about the economy has gotten increasingly positive. And the objective macroeconomic data shows that President Biden is presiding over a very surprisingly strong economy. So Donald Trump has actively been trying to take credit for it, right? Rather than downplay it like he used to, he's changing course and he's saying, actually, the economy is doing really well, but it's because of me, because the economy is anticipating that I will be reelected president. Now, again, Neil Cavuto is right to point that out, that that's nonsense. But Cavuto, it's not like Cavuto's in the bag for President Biden either, because he doesn't give President Biden credit for it. He says you can if you want, but Donald Trump definitely can't get any credit for it by any reasonable metric. And then, of course, he goes into gas prices and, you know, situation with the 2020 election. Every time it's been audited and recounted, President Biden typically gets more votes in audits. There was a recent one out of West Virginia, and he got thousands of more votes that had been misallocated to Donald Trump. Before I play the next Cavuto clip, I actually want to show you on this topic. Newsmax, of course, is salivating over Donald Trump's South Carolina speech, but even they felt the need to include this disclaimer after his speech.
Never get tired of that guy. The president mentioned in his speech the 2020 elections. Newsmax as a network believes the results were legal and final.
So they felt they had to like read that off. They probably, again, are terrified about the Dominion voting systems lawsuit, the settlement that Fox News had to pay out. But it's not just Donald Trump, right? Neil Cavuto has been taking shots at the Republican Party, I would argue, which richly deserve it and probably deserve even more for their incompetence and dysfunction. This is Neil Cavuto sparring with a Republican congressman from Texas, last name Gonzalez, about the border situation.
But Congressman, didn't that package really, I'm sorry, sir, but didn't that package really fail because Donald Trump didn't want it? And many in your party, I'm not saying you are, sir, are scared stiff of the guy. You didn't want to offend him. You didn't want to tick him off. So that was why it died.
Well, what if I told you, Neil, this is a lucrative topic and everybody wants to just mine it, nobody wants to solve it? That's all fun and games, but what if you're Little Old Eagle Pass or Uvalde or San Antonio or New York City or Boston or Denver or anywhere else in the country? I think Americans have had enough with the politics, and we're not going to wait until a new president comes to solve it. Let's solve it today. This is something
wasn't that the chance that both parties had, sir, with this interim agreement? It wasn't perfect, to your fine point. But the fact that Donald Trump didn't like it, many in your party didn't want to fight him. They're scared of him, or he's bedeviling them, or I don't know, he's going to come back and do something horrible. I don't know what it is. And that's what blew it up.
It fell apart, and I'm of the mindset we have to do something today. House Republicans.
So there you go. I mean, again, he was persistent on that point, and it's simply true. The reason that bipartisan border Senate deal, which was relatively conservative, I might add. Again, it's not something that it was right down the middle. It had infinitely more conservative provisions than progressive. The entire reason that thing collapsed was because of Donald Trump and the fecklessness and cowardice of Republicans, not only in the House, but also the Senate. So Cavuto was right. Democrats deserve none of the blame for that bill collapsing. Republicans deserve all of it. And I like the fact that he kept hammering on that. And Gonzalez, who says, listen, I actually agree. I think that we should do something about the border. No, his hesitation to blame Trump exactly. He was just like, well, this is a lucrative topic. Everybody wants to mine it. No. Donald Trump wants to mine it as a wedge issue ahead of the 2024 election. It's dirty pool. It's typical Republican bad faith. And again, Cavuto's right to call it out. He also took Chip Roy to task with a very blunt assessment of Republican incompetence. I mean, now I will say Chip Roy is also the one who has, on the floor of the House of Representatives, talked about how Republicans can't get anything done because they're so incompetent. So I suppose it's not that big of a shock to him. But listen to what Neil Cavuto says to the sitting Republican congressman about the Republican Congress.
Let's restrain that bureaucracy. And I think that'll be better for markets, better for Trump, better for Americans, better for prosperity. We just need Republicans to lead.
But our Republicans are not leading, and no offense to you, sir. I mean, you guys look like the Keystone Cops. You can't agree on anything, and there's now everyone wants the speaker's head. I don't know where you stand on that. But to add insult to injury, then the president comes out to say on the border he's got some ideas ahead of his State of the Union address where he might take executive actions, executive orders, maybe undoing some of the ones that he signed the day he became president. Now, some of your colleagues are going after him and say you can't do that, even though they said you have the power to do this. So he is going to do this. It's confusing because he said he wasn't going to do it. I'm just wondering, is he getting the better of you on the PR front? Not that that should matter, but it seems to matter.
So again, just a brutal criticism of Republican incompetence and dysfunction. Now, is President Biden getting the better of them on the public relations aspect? I sure hope so, right? Because that's the only way you should even be flirting politically with Republican policy on the border, because Republican policy just generally sucks, right? So if you're even going to hint at it rhetorically, it should be because you're going to gain an enormous political advantage here. So I hope the president carefully considers, if he's going to lean in that direction, he should do so very, very carefully and only to secure a political advantage. So we'll see what happens there. But again, Neil Cavuto just dropping one brutal truth bomb after another on members of the Republican conference and also Donald Trump himself. So I don't know if it's every month or every quarter or just at the end of the year, but Neil Cavuto does regularly read hate mail publicly that he gets from Fox viewers who are upset with him. And I imagine that list is going to get a lot longer by the next time he chooses to do so. Let me know what you think in the comments.